Hi, everyone. I don't know what's going on with my camera right now or my screen, so please forgive me. Um, my guests in the studio, if you can hear me, please give me a thumbs up. I can see at least one of you. Okay, thank you so much. I appreciate you both. So, welcome to our HR office hour. Why don't I go ahead and remove myself and add myself back because the blank screen is a little weird to look at. Okay, I guess we will just have to survive. I just wanted to show my beige hat today for those of you who are wondering what color hat I was wearing. So because it's a serious topic today, I wanted to be less colorful and less fancy and be more serious with my beige hat. So before I bring my wonderful guests up, I do have something different. Usually I play a song or something like that, something creative to get everyone in the mood for the topic that we're discussing. So instead of playing a song today, I have a trivia for everyone. And I just want to test and see what your HR knowledge looks like before we bring our two lovely guests over. So why don't we go and get started? And I also did some fun music to give you all some time to think about the answers. You will all have 10 seconds to think of the answer and then respond what you think is the right answer via comments or chat, or if you're on LinkedIn or YouTube or wherever you are. And then there's no winners, but I will keep track of who gets the most amount of answers right. And then I will make a certificate for them and hand it to you and publish it on LinkedIn as well. So if you are here listening to me or are able to hear me, please give me a thumbs up so I can go ahead and start the trivia game. Thumbs up or any kind of emoji, just say hey, it doesn't matter. Just show me something that you are ready for the trivia game. It's Colleen says it's existential. Okay, sounds great. Okay. So there might be actually a lag a little bit on LinkedIn from StreamYard. So uh there might be a delay. My apologies on that. I don't know what's wrong with the platforms, but why don't we go ahead and get started with the trivia? All right. So today we are going to discuss hiring biases and their effects in the workplace, because this is a very important topic that doesn't just apply to one group of people, that applies to everybody. And it's especially important to me because I am a woman and I'm a woman of color. So I want to ensure that everyone remains educated, informed, and make better decisions, especially if you are in the HR field or a hiring manager or so on and so forth. So, okay, we will go with question number one. Unconscious bias only influences hiring when someone is intentionally being discriminatory. You have 10 seconds. Is that true or false? 10 seconds starts now. Okay, 10 seconds are over. What do you think? What is the right answer? Is it true or is it false? There really is a delay, I believe, over here. So I'll just go and share the answer with you. The correct answer is false. Even with the best intentions, our unconscious minds can make quick judgments that shape decisions, often without us realizing it. This happens to me all the time. This happens to my friends, my families, my acquaintances all the time. So you're not alone. It happens to everybody. I see Felipe said false. So good for you, Felipe. You're the only one who responded. And so did Daddy Kenny. Thank you both so much. I appreciate you both. All right. So now we'll go to question number two. Blind resume reviews. Removing names and other personal identifiers can reduce bias in the screening process. Is it true or false? I need to start my 10-second timer right now. Okay, 10 seconds are over. The correct answer, can anybody guess? True or false? Okay. The correct answer is true. When identifying details are removed, decisions become more focused on qualifications and potential. How great is that? All right. Let's go to question number three. There's eight altogether, so we're about to go to question number three, and this is a little lengthier, so please bear with me. Which of the following is an example of affinity bias? A. Assuming a candidate is less capable because of their accent. B. Preferring someone because they went to the same university as you. C. Believing women are naturally better communicators. D. Hiring someone based on how comfortable or how confident, excuse me, how confident they seem. So your 10-second timer starts now. All right, the 10-second timer is over. Can anybody guess the answer? A, B, C, or D? I know it's a lot to read, but hopefully my beautiful voice was able to help you out. All right. The correct answer is B, preferring someone because they went to the same university as you. Affinity bias shows up when we fear people. I'm sorry, not when we fear, excuse me, sorry about that. Affinity bias shows up when we favor people who feel like us. It feels comfortable, but it's not always fair. And this is something that happens to everybody, not just one or two people here and there. This is a common occurrence. So, anybody who answered B for this, congratulations, you are so smart. All right. That was question number four, I believe. So, question number five. Which hiring approach can help minimize bias? A. Relying on first impressions. B. Using structured interviews with consistent questions. C. Asking personal questions to build rapport. D. Making quick decisions to save time. Your 10-second timer starts now. All right. Any guesses? Any guesses? Okay. The correct answer is B. Structured interviews level the playing. Oh my, I don't know why I said it like that. Structured interviews level the playing field and help us focus on skills and experience rather than comfort or chemistry. You might become BFFs with the candidate that you're interviewing, but that doesn't mean that they are right for the job that you're hiring for. You can become BFFs afterwards. I think that would be a better option. All right. So that was question number five. Why don't we hop on to question number six? Two more left. I know, so fun. Two more left. All right. The halo effect in hiring happens when A, one good impression overshadows everything else. B, a single negative moment shapes the whole perception. C, we assume someone is too good to be true. Or D, we focus only on technical skills. Your 10-second timer starts now. Okay, any guesses? Any guesses? Okay, the correct answer is A. A strong first impression, like confidence or charisma, can make us overlook other important factors. Yes, so now that my voice is so amazing to listen to, you might completely forget about my personality because you just love hearing me talk. I may be the most horrible person to work with, but you hire me anyway because you like the way my voice sounds. That is called the halo effect. All right. And I think this is the last question that we have. Oh, no. Yeah, that was the last question. So thank you everyone for playing. I appreciate you all for participating. So anybody who can hear me, can you tell me how many answers you got correct? That way I can determine who gets a certificate of completion and accomplishment, and I can advertise that on LinkedIn. So you have just a few minutes to, or 10 seconds to count your correct answers and let me know via comments. Hey. All right. So it's okay. You don't have to have your answers completely ready right now. Um, so I can wait. I can wait. Just let me know in the chats. And I'm going to try to switch my, I'm going to go back out and go back in just to make sure that my computer is not messing with me. Give me one moment, okay? Okay, yeah. Sorry, everyone. The last thing I saw was that Felipe said that he got all correct. So you still have time. If you're here from the very beginning, please let me know how many you got right, how many you did not. Well, you don't have to say how many you did not get right, just how many you got right, and then we'll go from there. So now let's get on to the actual conversation. I hope that you all love the or like the trivia game. I thought it was going to be a new thing. So let me know how you like it. All right. So hiring bias is a very, very important topic, not just for me, but a lot of people who are attending this live today, and those who are not attending live, but maybe might watch it in the future, or the concept of uh, biases is very important to them. So there's three things that I wanted to share with you, and a story that I think would make a lot of sense to you. So, one of the studies that I have is from presented by NPR as well as the University of Chicago, where they said that white sounding names got roughly 50% more callbacks than black sounding names. Also, in a large correspondence experiment, around 83,000 fake applicants submitted for a job, and typical employers call back white applicants roughly 9% points more than black ones. And for worst offenders, the big corporations did this mistake. So that is from NPR, University of Chicago. Happy to submit the article in the comments section after the live is done. And the same thing for another study that came out from Columbia School, or Columbia Business School, excuse me. They said that in STEM, which is science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, mothers versus fathers comparison. Mothers are roughly 35.9% less likely to be called for an interview than fathers. So there's a huge gender bias there, and moms and dads discrimination right over there. And then the final study that I have, I don't want to bombard everybody with all these studies. I'm happy to list the detailed articles in the comments afterwards. But in the University of Washington study, among over 550 real resumes, AI models ranked white male associated names favorably 85% of the time, female associated names only roughly around 11% of the time, and white male names always preferred over black male names. And if you want to read further on this concept or in this study, I am absolutely happy to share all of this information with everybody in the comments section. So please look out for that. And There's also a live story that went viral. I don't know how many people were actively using social media maybe 10 years ago or 9, 10 years ago, but there was somebody by the name of Jose Zamora. That was his name. And he was a very talented individual who was very qualified for lots of different things. I believe in mostly in technology, IT roles. So he would apply to multiple roles every single day, almost 100 roles per day, and he never got a call back. And that situation is very relevant right now, too, because of the wonderful job market that we're living in right now. But what he did was he was never getting callbacks, never getting any interview time slots, nothing. So he decided to drop his name, his Latino name, Jose, excuse me, and replace Jose with Joe. So he submitted the identical resume under Joe Zamora to the same companies and more. And he got callbacks like it's nobody's business. He was getting calls left and right, basically because the corporations or whatever ATC models that they were using, ATS, excuse me, models that they were using, they were all preferring white sounding male names over his Latino person of color names. So if you want to learn more about that matter as well, I'm happy to submit that as well in the comment section. There's a whole article on that on recruiting.com, as well as BuzzFeed covered it very, very much in depth as well. So definitely going to share that. But that's enough of me talking. I would love for the guests to come up on stage, and these two individuals, being extremely busy in their fields, especially one of them, who is working day and night, has agreed to be on this show or in this episode of mine for hiring biases, because they both work in HR. One is a corporate recruiter and the other does everything else on a very high level, and she is the founder and CEO of Swain Solutions, and not Solutions by Swain, but Swain Solutions. Please get that right. And I would love to hear what they have to say regarding hiring biases from their own perspectives, and we can all learn from them as well. And once again, I apologize, you cannot see my face. I don't know what's wrong with the camera, but I'm sure you would love to see the faces of the two lovely guests who I have. So welcome, Tiara, and welcome, Peter. Thank you both for joining me today. I, your presence means the world to me in educating us regarding HR and hiring biases. By the way, did you all know that Tiara actually worked with me once? I was actually in one of her trainings and I learned a lot. I don't know about my colleagues, but I learned a lot from her training. And I hope that you can learn from her as well. So thank you both for joining. Tiara, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself?
Well, one, I just want to say thank you so much, Noni. And Peter, it's so good to see you again as well for this opportunity for us to really for us to just really be honest, right, with having this conversation, but also sharing solutions, right, that we can really start to move the needle because hiring biases, man, I have stories ever since I was an intern, actually, where I experienced bias. And I think what's really important is that whether you're recruiting or even like these different levels of HR or even candidates, that I think what's really important is that they shouldn't be treated unfairly, right? They shouldn't be judged on things that have nothing to do with their job performance, right? So it's just based off the stereotypes. And I just think that like now is really a time, right, for us to really push for something different. But I also know that this has been happening, right, from different systemic barriers. It's been just from decades long ago. So yeah, this conversation is much needed. Go ahead, Peter.
Yeah, thanks, Noi, for having me on here. Good to see you, NTR, of course. Glad to see you. So I'm Peter Mulflur. I've been in recruiting for 6 years now. I've done corporate and agency, worked for big and small companies. So whenever I saw this opportunity about talking about biases like Tiara, it's littered throughout recruitment, and each of these different biases, each one can deserve its own show, if not more. So we have a ton to talk about, a lot to get into. So happy to be here.
And I'm happy to have you both. I wish I could show you my face and my excitement, but sorry that technical glitches and difficulties are not
Uh-oh.
allowing me say that or express them, because I almost flew my hat in the air when the two of you agreed to be on this show. So so this is the thing. Both Tiara and Peter, they are both from different ethnic backgrounds, different genders, different everything. And when I talked to them personally, they both expressed the biases that they experienced. Just because you're a white male doesn't mean that you get all the privileges in the world with job searching. And just because you're a woman of color, that also does not mean that you get all the privileges. In fact, me being a woman of color myself, I can tell you that it's three times as worse finding a job in my situation than, you know, most other women, I guess. So yeah, I'll shut up right there. But I just wanted the two of you to kind of discuss more about your own experiences and what we can do to limit the biases that we have unconsciously. Like how can we be aware of our unconscious bias when we're in the hiring team or in HR?
I'll have ladies first. Can you hear me, Tiara?
Yep, I can hear you, Peter, but I can't hear Noni.
Oh, she was passing it over to us to have us start talking, and I was gonna let you go first about talking
Okay.
whichever hiring biases you want to start with.
Yes. Well, I know that what she mentioned before for like affinity, that definitely happens a lot. And I remember, and so I'm sorry, I forgot to even just like introduce like my own HR background. So I worked at a staffing firm, and for like the staffing firm, I was responsible to find new contracts, but it was a discrepancy because it was really just like high attrition rates happening at the time. And so I wound up being like, I always say an indirect recruiter, but I witnessed a lot that happened. I witnessed where people experience name bias. I've seen people that experience even age bias, right? So if they were a little bit like older, or if they could have been younger, right? They experienced that. But what I know personally, I experienced age bias. So when I was an intern, and at this time, I was I was 19 years old at one of my first early internships, and they all thought I was a janitor. Like my first day, they handed me a mop, and I looked at them. I said, "Who's this for?" Right? So they couldn't believe that I was that young. Where I was working, and at that time, I had IT background, so that's what the internship was at a higher ed institution. That is, yes, like if you'll see it on my LinkedIn, like what that institution was, but yeah, so that was like one that I for my internship. And then I also experienced socioeconomic bias as well when I was interviewing just for different opportunities right out of college. So like what I noticed that was that they were asking me questions like where I grew up at. They asked me questions about, oh, if I didn't go to an Ivy League. I just like everything was just kind of like off, I think, like during that conversation. And I knew that at that time, maybe that's not the role for me. I don't want to be a part of a work culture where I can't show up as my best self. So yes, definitely. And of course, gender bias. So with gender bias and many of the roles in many of the industries that worked at, they were male dominated. And I remember even corporation, I remember that everyone that got passed over for me, and again, they could have had more experience, which is definitely like justified to say, but like out of like 10 times, 9 of them, they didn't look like me. Okay. They all looked the same, unfortunately. So yes, I even know I was overqualified for all of the roles.
Sure.
Yeah. So go ahead, Peter.
And I'll say, so with the hiring managers that I've recruited for, I mean, just starting with the affinity bias, that's a huge thing. And just a reminder for everybody, affinity bias is whenever people want to be with like-minded, like way individuals, such as university is a huge one. I've had multiple hiring managers tell me that they want me to hire somebody from this university. So when I'm doing my searches, if you find somebody that's outside of this university, don't even bother because I don't want to look at them. So unfortunately, it is a very real thing where along with these biases, you can take out qualified individuals like myself or Noni or Tiara out of situations because of different biases. And it is not only just on the female side as well. I mean, my side is that while I don't know for sure, I can give you an example of one of the companies that I recruited for. I won't tell you the name, of course, but they were telling me that essentially we have plenty of white and Asian males in the company. So if you come across any white or Asian males, don't even bother. Just if you find someone who's female, ideally. So whenever we would find people of a certain name, they would say, "Don't even bother with it." And kind of like with Noni was talking about earlier. So I haven't come across it, but obviously Noni's representation of of Jose and changing his name to Joe, that actually does have one of the biases that's known out there. They just call it name and identity bias, where that is just is that stereotypes based off of name, gender, race, ethnicity, accent. So unfortunately, that situation's there. And I'm sure that there are plenty of others like that out there as well. Another bias that I definitely came across a lot was age as well. Like you were talking about, not necessarily known for myself, but same thing with hiring managers. And this is just one thing that really gets me going, especially in today's day and age when I mean, we've got Kenny down in the comments who's been I'm sure he's gonna remind me in the comments. He's been at his current job. I think it's either 36 or 37. Can't remember the exact number of years.
Oh, that's awesome. That's phenomenal.
Yeah. It's pretty much, it's not impossible, but the thought of somebody being at the same company nowadays for 30 plus years, as much as Kenny's been at his current location, is hard to believe. So whenever I had these hiring managers telling me that they don't want to hire anybody that's 50 or older, I'm thinking to myself, and this was this was years ago, where I'm thinking to myself, you're lucky right now if you keep somebody for 1 to 2 years, because they're saying, well, they want to keep somebody here long term. And again, if you can keep somebody longer than 2 years in any one opportunity, that's a huge thing. And I'm sure that because I experienced it at this one place, I'm sure it happens in plenty others as well. So there's a ton of different biases. Whenever I was creating my notes, I have these 10 different biases. Not going to go over all of them, but as I was reading through all of them, I have examples from my recruiting experience for every single one. And so biases can overall, the main point, if anything, I want to get out there to everybody is that biases can very negatively affect your recruitment process. In that the first time that I was really brought up about diversity, the main thing that I needed to know about diversity recruitment, especially if you are recruiting for a global company, is the thought of, if you're recruiting for a company that services customers on a global scale, you cannot have all white males at your company and expect that that's going to accurately represent not only the company, but be able to tailor your needs to to your customers around the world. If all you have is white males, you need to diversify to have people from all continents, all countries around the world. So if anybody's watching out there in your company and they notice these biases that keep your company from promoting that diversity because of all these different biases that they do have, whether it's unconscious or conscious, whether you deliberately do it or you don't know that you're doing it, I would recommend that you stop, because you're shooting yourself in the foot, and you're shooting yourself in the foot in regards to not having innovation in your company.
Yeah. So, Peter, I just want to piggyback on what you said. when I used to work at LinkedIn, we used to always say +1, and I honestly say yes, +1 to that. So I know that, like, even if we're thinking about like the effects, right? Like for hiring biases in the workplace, but Peter mentioned like the importance, like when you don't see a lot of diversity, they're gonna like you're gonna have teams where they're gonna lack different perspectives. But I think that sometimes companies may also neglect the legal risks, right? These are multi-million-dollar lawsuits that are happening
For sure.
where that's going to tarnish your reputation. That's going to also directly influence employee morale. When you have like employees that feel like disengaged, they're not going to show up, right? They can start looking for another opportunity. There's just so many negative impacts from like what decision you can make, right? So even I would like to say that bias really honestly starts off with a job application determination, right? We see like a whole trend of that. But I also think that's what's also important to note is that even like with hiring, I'm sorry, like with the effects of this, I also think that you're going to start to create like the call like cultural stagnation, right? Where it's going to directly influence the company culture,
Sure.
and when anything has like I would say like anything that has a negative reputation is going to travel faster, right? Versus it's like to me it's similar to gossip, right? Negative news is going to spread a lot faster than positive news, and so when you have leadership, right, where they may not look like yourself, essentially, right? Just like with how you identify it, people are going to be more, I'm sorry, less likely to apply for those opportunities, right? And then over time, it's just going to create a negative bias even against that organization as well, too. So, yeah, there's a lot of that. And then I would also say, too, I'm sorry, because I'm just like thinking randomly on this, right? You could, even like what Peter said, you all, there's so much that we can talk about this. I don't think that people really realize like the cost of an employee. That's 3/4 someone's compensation. So basically, what it costs an organization. So if I make $100,000, the company now has lost $75,000, right? After I've left, after they've trained me, give me like benefits. That's just also like crucial to also point out too. But then, so I have a question for you, Peter. So I wanted to know, even like during like when you're interviewing candidates, if you've ever like ever show bias. And this is a safe space too. I'm just curious, just coming from a recruiter's perspective.
No, sure. I mean that's the thing. If anything, it'll be unconscious bias rather than
Right.
conscious. I haven't intentionally tried to deter
Mm-hmm.
someone away intentionally, but unintentionally, I'm sure that I have. I mean, I give everybody the benefit of the doubt. For instance, whenever I'm looking at resumes of people that are C2C candidates, or
Right.
for those who don't know, corp to corp candidates that require sponsorship. For a good amount of companies, some are okay with doing sponsorship, some aren't. But I've seen so many resumes where I can just about, I mean, again, I don't know for sure, but I've seen
Mm-hmm.
so many resumes so far that if I look at your resume, I pretty much know you're a corp to corp candidate before I call you. But at the same time, because I'm not supposed to just throw it away because I think you're corp to corp, I have
Right.
to call you, and the same thing with their name too. That's another thing that'll come up too. If I see their name and their resume in a certain format, I will be thinking about that. But I
Right.
do give myself the benefit of the doubt because it actually has happened to where, because I mean, I've even been told by whether it was account managers, other management above me,
Yeah.
telling me to don't even bother with these resumes. But because I didn't, granted, I have not, I've called a lot of
Yeah.
people and they did end up being C2C people that I wasn't able to work with. But there actually have been a few candidates where I actually made the effort to call them, and they weren't C2C candidates. They could work within the parameters of the position. And so it worked out, and it's, perfect, one of many examples I have where I didn't let any preconceived notions I had because of previous
Right.
experience hold me back from finding a really good candidate.
And I think, Peter, that is so important, even like what you mentioned, because we need to make sure that we have recruiters and hiring teams that really want to advocate. Okay. And that's really just like what that is, because you didn't have to do that.
Mm-hmm.
You didn't like with you even like getting out of your comfort zone and standing up for them, you were like I would say, you directly impacted someone getting a better opportunity, right? And hats off to you. So I think that that's amazing. And I know that even for one of the questions, Noni mentioned blind recruitment. I think that, I'm sorry, you're like, yeah, well, blind recruitment, right? It's where typically where resumes are submitted without a name. You may not have the school name on there, graduation date. I mean, year, sorry, yeah, graduation date, year, yeah, that's also removed. Right. I think that what I like about that is that you really get to just, I'm sorry, select someone right based off of their skill set or how they get presented, right, and all that, which is really important. But what I think what also can also play a factor is you can also just see too, like if different hiring managers, right, if they continue to make similar decisions, then they can also, of course, have bias among that. So I think it's also important to also track this, right? Where also are you looking for candidates? Not everyone's going to have a LinkedIn profile. Someone may have Indeed, right? So that's another factor too. Is like, are you considering this, right? Even I know that there are recruiters where I had, like, even when I worked at LinkedIn, I would give them recommendations, and I would say, like, hey, like, people may not even have access to transportation, but you want to have career fair. Think about that, right? Really, when you make these decisions, you should think about the totality of it. So yes. And I also think too, I'm thinking out loud just for different solutions, right? Of course, people like your organizations can invest to have unconscious bias training, yes, but from someone that's credible, please. Definitely we have that. But then I also think that even having like diversified hiring panels as well, right? It shouldn't just be the same person doing that. You want to make sure that people can give their honest opinion, but also make sure that it's credible as well too. So yeah.
So I have a question then. We talked a lot about people of different ethnic origins, or males and females or genders. What about those individuals who are very, very reluctant to say that they have a disability when they're applying for a job, or they're neurodivergent? What can, I mean, you're both in HR, but like, what can HR individuals or employees do to better support applicants or candidates who did say that they have a physical disability, or they're neurodivergent, or an unseen disability?
Tiara, do you want to go first, or do you want me to go first?
Hold on, give me 2 seconds. Give me 2 seconds. My nephew just walked in, so I'm sorry.
Okay, no worries. I'll go first. So I wish I had this information more on it, because I actually did a segment with other people about neurodivergency a few months back, where pretty much I wouldn't ever let anybody who's neurodivergent think that they have some type of disability that can hurt them, because I do recall, I can't recall the specifics. What I can recall is that different neurodivergencies have certain parts of their neurodivergency that are actually better than people that don't have those. So what I can say is that your neurodivergency isn't necessarily a hindrance. Maybe you lack in one area, but you're better in another. So I would say that with whatever your current neurodivergency is, I would say look up, not only look it up, but also think about your daily life as it is right now. What do you do right now that's way better than other people around you that don't have the same neurodivergency as you? I imagine that there's at least one thing that you can do better than anybody else. And so because of that neurodivergency, it can actually be a benefit, not a hindrance to what you're doing. So what I would say to that ultimately is that neurodivergency isn't something to be negative about, because it can have positives in certain aspects versus other people that don't have that neurodivergency. So don't be discouraged. Apply. We need people of, going back to the whole thing with bias, is that we're holding people back, but in the hiring biases, we are holding people back because they have a certain, in this case, neurodivergency or something else that will keep them from getting a job. But we're supposed to not discourage that. So neurodivergency, people that have neurodivergency, don't discount yourself whatsoever. I know, again, there's at least one thing you can do better than everybody else that doesn't have the same neurodivergency as you. So
So
focus
Peter,
on those focus on those positives, and that's the main thing I wanted to say about anybody with neurodivergencies.
so
Yeah.
Peter, my question to you then is, that was a great answer, by the way. Thank you very much. But that is for candidates who are neurodivergent. Now,
Mhm.
if they can't help their neurodivergence, so when they apply for a job and they say that I do have a disability, I'm
Mhm.
neurodivergent, what can we encourage the hiring teams to do to not be biased towards uh, people who are people who have disabilities? Like, you're a corporate recruiter. Like, what
Mhm.
would you encourage your peer
Sure.
to to do to not discriminate against someone who
Mhm.
has a disability?
Sure. So it's not there by law, but at least at my last position, we did actually have a specific bias training. It's talking about a few of the different biases we talked about so far tonight. While it's not required by law, it is absolutely something recommended, and I hope it's also practiced at other places as well. That there are certain bias trainings out there that you can implement as you're training people up, as you're onboarding them and training them. So I know that that's one thing to do. And so, I mean, pretty much that's at the bare minimum. I would start there. Is that pretty much there are trainings for different biases that you can have out there, and then making sure that and it's also an accountability thing on the HR side as well, to make sure that you do these trainings, because people can be at jobs for multiple years, and being able to do these trainings at least once a year is also helpful as well.
For sure. And Tiara, before we get to you, I do want to remind everyone that we only have 15 more minutes
No.
for our to end. So I just kind of wanted to remind everyone that. So if you have any questions, please feel free to ask them now. And also, if you were here earlier during the trivia, please let us know how many you got right so we can get you a certificate. So just wanted to let reminder out there. And back to you, Tiara.
So what I was going to say is, I'll just add to Peter's point. Again, you're doing a great job, Peter. I was going to say that I know that I've seen on different organizations, because I used to consult for staffing firms, and I know that I used to recommend, well, you can make it voluntary, right? What you feel comfortable with disclosing, that shows the way. But even also, how are you marketing yourself? When I would look for opportunities, yeah, I'm looking at all the different employees. I'm looking at who's on the leadership team, who I can also connect with. I would also reach out to current employees to really get the real honest, right? To see like, hey, like, how is it really there? Like, do you feel supported? Are there opportunities for growth, right? I also think that what's also important is, and I remember I worked with one organization where I was consulting for them. They actually tracked like a lot of the different demographics data after everyone was hired. So they didn't do it in the beginning. They did it afterwards to just see, okay, so like just depending on everyone's strength, right? What can really grow the team and push it forward. So yeah, I think that that's definitely a different strategy. And then also being mindful of, do you have inclusive writing, right? I think that we can use AI tools for the good. I know that sometimes that it can cause issues, but I think that if you have good intentions, you can even say like, hey, like, do any biases show up in this job description, right? Have I checked on everything? Like, will it's the O.Z.K complaint, right? So there are different factors too, even with how you show up. Yes, like even just as an organization too.
That's Damien, our big brother, saying hi,
Hi,
love.
Damien. Yes.
You both are so great for sharing this information. And there's so much to talk about regarding this topic. But like I said, we only have 15 minutes, individuals or people watching and listening. So please ask any questions that you have. And if you would like for us to do a part two, let us know so we can schedule that maybe end of this month or sometime in November. And then we'd be happy to continue this conversation. So, I actually want to talk about the positive sides of the biases as well, because we're only talking about negatives right now and what we can do to make it positive. But what about those that are already positive biases? I can tell you that And Tiara, you know this already because I've discussed this with you, and same thing with you, Peter. But I experienced positive bias, but it did not go well in my favor. And let me kind of elaborate on that a little bit. So the last job that I had, I was hired only because it was assumed that I was a person of color. So I would be an expert in the field that I was hired in. And in reality, I didn't know anything about that. It was a brand new thing for me. And I just came in blind. And the other candidates who may have had more experience than me, had more merit, had more, had more, what's the word I'm looking for? They would be more qualified than me to do their job. They were not given the position, but I was, and I had no qualifications of that whatsoever. So even though that was a positive for me to get hired, my experience, the effect of that in the workplace for me was not great. Uh, just because because I think my boss kind of had her own biases as well. That you're automatically an expert in this field just because you're a woman of color. So that happens as well. And
Yeah, that sounds
yeah,
like
I'll just stop
reinforcing a
right there.
stereotype. I'm sorry. No, continue.
Yeah,
Continue.
I know. I was about to stop right there and then hand it over to the two of you. So, but yeah, what can you share about that, Tiara? I know you know more in depth about the situation than Peter, so if you can share your insights, that would be great.
I think you're on mute, Tiara.
Sorry, I think she kind of cut out. Can you say that one more time? Only heard part of it.
Oh no, it's okay. So what I was saying, Tiara, is that you know more about the situation that I described in more in depth. So I would love to hear what you have to say about, or what insights you
Catch
have
that.
regarding. Huh? Uh, can you hear me, Tiara?
Everything keeps. It's just I keep it keeps getting cut. Are you able to catch her, Peter?
Yeah, she wanted you to talk more about her positive bias situation. She talked about it with you more in depth and wanted to get your
Yeah.
perspective on it.
Yeah, no. So I mean, but I think that like when Noni shared that with me earlier, I think that like to me, like technically, it's essentially a form of favoritism, and that can hurt long term inclusion. I think that I guess like I guess like when all this happens, I think that it can damage trust and morale. Like sometimes within the team, if they also like I guess if they also assume that she could have I guess like gotten that job like due to favoritism. I also think that like when something could be experienced in positive, right, like bias, I think that that's going to cloud the performance data, right? Of what's actually going to happen, what's going to count, like versus like those first 90 days, the first 6 months, right, in this role. I think that if you want to really remove like anything that could be, whether it could be unconscious bias or also explicit bias. Oh, okay. I'm sorry. We just had a question. Positive discrimination, and I guess so. Yeah, I've never heard of that term. Technically, positive discrimination, but
Mm-hmm.
that's definitely is a form of it. So yeah, I think that and just essentially, if one person like receives disadvantage, it's going to make everyone else disadvantaged to some sort. So yeah, to some degree. And I also think that even like from like Noni's perspective, that can also create a lot of pressure for her, really to especially what if she's not even as confident. Not to say that she won't do well. I know that I believe. I'm sorry. See, I believe that she will do well. See, I just showed her some form of positive bias, but yes, I think that all this is still like perpetuating stereotypes.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, awesome.
Absolutely. And Peter, did you want to add to that before we get over to Felipe's question?
Sure. I mean, not necessarily, but I just one positive bias story that I was thinking of. So before I got into recruiting, I did sports marketing, and one of my sports marketing gigs was recruiting for the Texas Rangers. So this didn't happen, or at least not to my own knowledge. But after I interviewed, one of the people that was currently on the team came up to me, or he told me afterwards, is that we saw this guy I was dressed up in a suit and tie, but I'm also a bigger guy. I'm 5'6", but I'm like 220 for my size, but a good 220. I'm strong. So they look at me and they see how physically fit I look. And a couple of the promotions that I had to do for sports marketing was moving around heavy stuff. So because of my physical appearance, that actually helped me get the job. They told me afterwards is because you look physically fit and strong, that actually helped you, much more easily get the job. But not only because I also worked for Baylor before that, so I had 2 years of doing what they were already doing, but having that added bias of, they saw me and assumed that I was as strong because of how I looked, which is not always the case for everybody. But it is a case where positive bias did help push me to get the job a lot easier.
You know what, Peter, when you were talking, it sparked up another example. My first job out of college, I was denied for like the first initial role that I interviewed for. It was 6 panelists. I said, "What is this?" I was still in college. I was not ready at all.
Mm-hmm.
But I remember I did technically experience affinity bias because that manager who wound up hiring me, we worked at the same internship at Enterprise.
Mm-hmm.
So if you know anything about Enterprise internships, it's not easy. You work a lot, but I feel like, he basically said that he knows that I earn a lot of grit. Mm-hmm. He made that statement, but he technically couldn't justify that, right? Yes, my resume could say that, but I technically experienced that too. Technically, and I definitely leveraged it because I wouldn't be where I'm at now if I never landed that job at Pepsi back in Maryland. I would not be where I'm at today.
For sure.
So many positive bias stories here. At least it's working out a little bit. At least it worked out for you, Tiara. I don't know if it worked out for you, Popeye, or not, but I'm glad that you were able to get a job in the sports marketing business. So why don't we get over to Felipe's question? It's been there for some time now. Mm-hmm. So question from Felipe for both of you is, what's the favorite part of your jobs?
Tiara, you can go first if you want.
Okay, I'll go first. And hi, Felipe. It's so good to see you. I'm so sorry. I don't know if you hear Waffle speak. You hear Waffle speak right now. He says hi, everyone, as well. So I would say that the favorite part of my job is really just having that direct influence for an impact. So right now, I work with different types of clientele. So I work with career, like job seekers. And on that end, my favorite part of it is like presenting and helping them really gain whether it could be a dream job or even like allowing them to reach different milestones within themselves. Like I see a lot of greatness in them, but to really just genuinely help them like walk through so they can also understand that they are great and like help them get to the final, like the final finish line. Sorry, tongue tied. Yep. That's what I really love about it. It's really just making a direct impact that I get to do it my way and my style. So yeah, I'm still Philly over here. So. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and for me, it's I get to help people. So I did sports marketing before I did recruiting. Whenever I was making my transition, I wanted to do something where I got to help people. And then whenever I saw people at Baylor doing at the recruiting fairs, they seemed to enjoy what they were doing. So I figured, let's try it out. Luckily, it is a field where you can help people. Especially, I really appreciate the times where after X amount of work I've done for any number of candidates, one of them actually reaches out and thanks me for for helping them. And they say, because of you, I get to live closer to my family, or I got to 2x my salary, or I got this job that I didn't think I ever would at this company. I didn't think I would be able to be at for at least another however many number of years. So that's my favorite part, is helping people find opportunities to help make them better lives. Because I've been on the short end of the stick many times as well, where I'm not getting the opportunities that I necessarily want. And I'm not getting the chance to prove myself, but at the very least, whenever I'm at these recruiting jobs, I'm able to help people get into better life situations, and that's very fulfilling for me.
And I just want to also say something about Peter's awesome. Even just like for him being a corporate recruiter, many people don't know this, but his job is not easy. Okay, he's definitely like what we like to call a Superman, essentially, right? Because you got to think about it from a recruiter's perspective. He doesn't have that much time to really screen, and so the fact that he's still is removing bias right throughout this process. Is really genuinely make a direct impact. That's powerful, like for sure in that. So shout out to Peter.
Thank you.
Tiara, you said
Yes.
Peter is a Superman, and I'm just gonna tell you that he looks like Superman too. Just want
Yes,
everyone to
it
know that
does.
as well. Not only is he a corporate recruiting Superman, he
Yes.
looks like a Superman as well, or he looks like Superman
No, that is hilarious. That is
minus the cape, because not all
yeah.
heroes wear capes.
No, absolutely, absolutely. And I think that I guess like what's really dope about doing this is that we get to still show up as our best self. I'm
Yeah,
not changing who I am, right? Like even like for my business as a full time entrepreneur, I act the same way when I act in LinkedIn. I act in the other locations as well, right? For the other places. And I guess like but I don't know. It's I mean, I guess like I don't know. I feel like I'm rambling now, but it's just so much, right? When you can make a really big impact, I'm not sometimes at a loss for words.
Hmm.
When Peter mentioned, yeah, like helping someone get 2 times your salary, yes, yes, we definitely have that. We have that direct influence. But I think that what kind of hurts is that I can't control if they're experiencing like someone that could be a racist HR manager. That's happened.
Hmm.
I can't control if I've had a client where the recruiter accidentally shared his notes and it said like don't hire black. Like she saw all of that. It was very daunting. She cried and then I reported them as well to the EOC. So
Hmm.
are certain things, but I know that when you operate with tensions, we can. I think we're always going to get it back tenfold, Peter. So
yeah. So thank you so much for that,
yes,
Tiara, and thanks, Popeye, for both of you being so amazing. Clearly, amazing individuals. So we only have 3 minutes before we close out, and I want to say two things. One is anybody who, oh my goodness, I'm losing my train of thought. Shoot, okay, I forgot my train of thought. The first one, but the second one is the two of you, since you're both in HR, recruiting, and everything else. What is the one piece of advice you would give to your peers when they are recruiting new candidates to make sure that they're making the best decisions and
yes.
not following through their unconscious bias?
You
Tiara, you
want to
can
go
go.
first? Oh, okay. Thank you, Peter. So I would say is like to answer that question. That's a great question, Oni. What I would say is make sure that when you're selecting to be intentional, make sure they're a cultural ad, not a cultural fit. You don't want to make feel like someone's actually boxed in, right? You want to know like how can we leverage your strengths to make this organization better. But I would also say get educated, right? You should be comfortable with being uncomfortable. If you really want to help, show up as an ally as well, right? So what I mean by that is even like from like what Peter mentioned, even what Peter mentioned where sorry, even when Peter mentioned that when I could have gotten like overlooked, right? Like certain candidates, he stepped in for that, right? And so and that's what like I'm sorry, that's what makes this very important as well. Sorry. Yes. Sorry, it's a little chaotic over here, but we're here.
Hmm. And if anything, if I want to add on, is really just that is give people a chance. You'd be surprised about. I've had to go for bat for candidates when hiring managers said no. So I would just say give people a chance if you can see that they have potential. If especially when you have candidates that are reaching out to you themselves. I mean, a resume can say a lot, but if a person's making the effort to personally reach out to you to champion themselves in order to get a position, that says a ton about a person rather than someone just sending you a resume. So, whenever you have, whenever you're in HR, if you're hiring for a role, give people a chance because you can very much be very well surprised by people in many unexpected ways.
That is so true. And both of you are saying the same thing that I did. And I'm so proud of myself. I was in the recruiting team as well, hiring somebody in the HR team when I was, working and not unemployed. And I did just that. So I could have not been more proud of myself. So, and I think Tiara, I already told you the story. Peter, I already told you the story, but I don't want to repeat it out loud because it's 7 p.m. on the dot. And I just remembered what I wanted to tell everybody. But before that, thank you both. I appreciate your insights and appreciate your advice to your peers and your acquaintances to make better decisions, to be more mindful, to be more aware, and give people a chance because you never know what amazing things they can bring to the table. And my question to everybody was, if you want a part two of this conversation, please write part two in the comments so I can keep track of that and we can schedule a part two for everybody. And then you can bring more questions and more specific topics within hiring biases and effects in workplace, and we can make that happen. So, with that being said, I'm so sorry. I have to run, which is why I'm being abrupt in closing out the room all right on time. So thank you, Tiara. Thank you, Peter. You're both awesome people and amazing individuals with a whole lot of knowledge, a whole lot of insights, a whole lot of everything. And I personally cannot thank you both enough for taking the time out of your crazy busy schedules to come educate us on hiring biases. And hopefully, we can do a part two based on the request of our guests. And once again, as a reminder, if you were earlier in the show, and if you participate in the trivia, let us know how many points you got correct or how many answers you got correctly so I can do a certificate for you. And Felipe, don't worry, I'm going to give you an honorary mention certificate because you do have an unfair advantage for knowing all those answers in the trivia as an HR executive yourself. All right. So, with that being said, have a wonderful rest of your Wednesday and week. And hopefully, we will see you all for part number two. And thank you both to our guests for joining us as well. Take care, everyone.
Yep. Bye, everyone.
Bye.